Amazing. Hello, everyone. Yay. We're so excited to have everyone here. Both Dom and Kayla are here. I am here, and we're going to be talking about creating a healthy home today. And I'm really excited for this conversation because it kind of covers the spectrum of professionals who see different parts of this whole experience. I'll let you guys introduce yourself. I'll just do it briefly, but Dom works with Lightwork Home Health, and they go into people's homes and generate these whole reports that are so amazing about different things that they can do to optimize the health of their home, the place that they're residing in most. It's absolutely fascinating, such an amazing service. And Kayla, I have known for quite some time, who has been on her own personal health journey and has done so much work and research into personal care products, especially to regulate her hormones. And Kayla, I've been a firsthand witness of all the work that you've done and all the intention that has gone into this. So I love that you can bring this consumer perspective into this conversation too, because it can be really overwhelming for people. So I'm so grateful for you both being here today. And if you want to maybe do like a little introduction about yourselves, Dom, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Madeline.
Of
Yeah,
course.
Dom Francks. I'm the general manager for, call it the West Coast California area for Lightwork Home Health. What we do is the most comprehensive assessment on the market for all the environmental toxins in homes. So we test air quality, water quality, lighting, EMFs, mold, a little bit on the household product side. That sounds like Kayla is much heavier on the sort of the personal care elements. And so I think this is a very complimentary conversation. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and discuss and hopefully share some things and learn some things about home health.
Oh, so good. And Kayla, if you wouldn't mind saying just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kayla. I feel like in 2020, I really catapulted into learning about what low toxic living was. And, everyone picked up a few hobbies during COVID, but I've always been health conscious and an athlete my whole life. So I was thinking so much about what I was fueling myself with and performance and really never looked beyond nutrition and fitness. And then I realized how many chemicals and things were in our personal care products that we're exposed to every day. So I've been on a passion project for that is now a forever project, learning about all the personal care products and the chemicals, unfortunately, that are in them. So trying to live a low tox life as much as possible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been really incredible to be a witness to you navigating this. And I think, again, like I said before, I think a lot of people feel really confused about this. So I have two like experts in both fields, being able to understand home health and the personal care product side. And then just briefly, I'm Madeline Cunningham. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, functional medicine specialist, and co-founder of Reve Health. And I look at lab results all the time. So we do a lot of environmental pollutants testing, we do mold testing. I have a lot of professional and unfortunately personal experience dealing with mold illness. So I am unfortunately too well versed in this area. But it's something that really affects people more than they know. And the health of their home can affect not only their physical health, but dramatically their emotional health. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation today. So I put together a little bit of slides. I'm going to go ahead and open it. And when I was thinking about the intention for this conversation and the fact that we have you two here, who are so knowledgeable in such different ways, I wanted to kind of like lob questions at the group that I think are some of the most commonly asked questions about home health. And as someone who's patient facing, a lot of the questions that I get from our clients. So I'm putting each one of you a little bit on the spot here, but I think it will be fun and dynamic. So an exciting challenge for us all. We introduced ourselves. So, Dom, I wanted to start with you here because I know you guys do work with mold. And I can contribute to this conversation as well, but mold is becoming an increasingly popular topic in the health and wellness space these days. I feel like a lot of people are talking more about mold illness, which I think is great for overall awareness. And as someone who goes into people's homes and is doing the inspections, like, is mold always visible? Will you always know if there's mold in your home? I feel like I get asked this question a lot. So, what comes up there for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will begin my answer by saying I think it kind of depends on what you mean by visible.
Mm,
If visible means you're going to go open up your walls and try to find it, eventually, yes. If there's
yes.
enough mold to be causing health issues, somewhere it is visible. it could be very hard to get eyes on it. So
Mm.
the way that we approach mold testing, essentially overall, our perspective at Lightwork is the state of mold testing is unfortunately just not great. There aren't really good solutions out there. We think there are some people working on some interesting next generation mold tests that we're excited about, but as of right now, the way that we approach it is sort of in a staged process. So what we do as Lightwork, as part of our home health assessment is a mold likelihood assessment. And you can think of that like a litmus test of whether or not it is likely that your home may have an indoor mold source. And for what we do for that is a MSQ PCR ERMI dust test. So you probably hear of these as ERMI tests. Essentially, you take a Swiffer, gather some dust from various areas in the home. We compare that against an outdoor baseline, and then that helps us understand if there are elevated species counts of different types of mold species inside the home that we're not seeing outside the home.
Got it.
That essentially informs whether or not you should invest in getting a manual mold inspection from a mold expert, either just as a human or a human paired with a dog. We think that that is sort of the gold standard. And if you're experiencing symptoms, you have significant visible mold in your home, before you go into a remediation process, you're going to want to have an extremely experienced mold inspector come and physically look around for that mold, but that's an expensive and involved process. So through those dust tests, we can give people an indication of whether or not it's worthwhile to go through that process because the dust tests have a very low false negative rate. So if they come back clean, probably you're okay. If they come back elevated, there are a few reasons that that could be. It's probably worth taking the next step. So short answer to molds is always visible. I think ontologically, yes. Practically, no. Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for clarifying that. It's so interesting because the ERMI test, if people aren't familiar, just like Dom said, it's sort of like a Swiffer test. Like they mail you a piece of cloth, you take a dust collection, you mail it back to a lab, and it will tell you if there's mold in your home. But some people will take these test results as a gospel, I guess, that this is all of a sudden they have this massive problem. Maybe they need to move. But I love this approach that you're saying of there's a next step here that you need to have a physical inspector come in and examine the home with a dog. I think that's so interesting. And a physical inspection to really identify the areas of the home that might need to be remediated.
Yeah, just like a couple of very brief clarifying precisioning points, I suppose.
Yeah.
The dog is not necessary, can be a very experienced human. And
Mhm.
if you do a ERMI dust test, it will tell you whether there is mold in the dust. That does not necessarily mean that there's mold in your home, though it is a strong likelihood. And also the areas, the sort of protocol and the areas from which you sample are very important. And so that's why, we have a very specific protocol of where we'll sample from, where we won't, how many samples we need to do for every, 1,000 square feet of the home, doing an outdoor baseline. So, it is, important to follow an appropriate protocol to get accurate results from these tests. But yeah, it's not the be all end all, but it is a helpful directionally for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that clarifying point. And I was going to ask you, so in the mold world these days, there's a lot of conversations about old homes are problematic, new construction's problematic, everything's problematic. People are nervous and scared, especially if they've had any run-in with mold in the past. Now they're scared to move anywhere. So if you could just name even a few tips of like how do you create the potential for a mold-free home? Like what are the things that are important?
Yeah, so this is one thing we've been really thinking a lot about is it turns out mold's everywhere. That doesn't mean I don't say that as a scary thing because, mold is a very broad category of organism. Not all of it is harmful to human health. We have created homes for a number of reasons. Yeah, you're totally right. Old homes have issues. Medium sort of age homes have issues. New homes, actually, I think new homes have fewer issues, but I'm sure there's still possible to have mold there. One thing that we've been thinking a lot about recently at Lightwork is sort of mitigating the inhabitants' level of exposure to mold, even if there is some amount of mold in the home. So you can think
Mhm.
of it, an analogy here is, for air purifiers, we control what the outdoor air looks like, but we can control, to some degree, the level of purification and our approach towards creating a cleaner air environment inside the home. we could take a similar approach. It's a little bit different, but a similar approach to mold where we say, okay, if there is mold, if there's some amount of mold source in our home, but potentially we're not experiencing symptoms, there isn't visible mold, is that actually a problem? Or does it only become a problem when you, the inhabitants, or you, your family, are actually exposed to it? And can we decrease your exposure even if there is some amount of mold in the home? And we've been working on sort of an extended protocol to help with that. And the foundational things to do are really high quality air purification. Mold spores, which is what causes all the health impacts, are just particulates. So if you have, the appropriate number of standalone air purifiers, whether it's from Koei or Jasper or Air Doctor or any of these brands, they're all great. All the filters work. Just you need enough of them to get enough air changes per hour in your home. If you have a really excellent air purification system, you're going to have far fewer mold spores in the air, and therefore you're going to be exposed to far less mold in your home. The other thing that is important, especially if you live in a humid place, is doing what you can to try to keep humidity below 50%.
Mm.
And dehumidifiers, you got to watch them closely because they can also become moldy. But if you if you use a dehumidifier and are careful to make sure that it doesn't become an actual source in and of itself, that can decrease the likelihood that mold can be growing in your home. And then also just basic things like keeping an eye out for any water damage. If you do notice there's some water damage, if a shower overflows or something, acting quickly to try to remediate that as much as possible on your own. Things like that are beneficial. So there are things that we can do to create less likelihood, both for mold to grow in the home and also for us to be exposed less to the negative impacts of mold.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. And just from the functional medicine side, when I see people struggle with mold, some of the common symptoms are reoccurring gut issues, especially if they're not resolving with more gut healing protocols, particularly SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. I also see it a lot with people who are unexplainably gaining weight, and that happens over time and not really for any particular reason. Sometimes it happens with cystic acne. A lot of times it can be with cognitive issues, brain fog, anxiety that can lead to panic attacks. So if these are symptoms that you're experiencing, just know that mold might be something that you might be reacting to. So thank you so much, Dom, for clarifying a lot of the mold conversation. That was super helpful. And then, Dom, I have another question for you. So, in terms of Wi-Fi, because I feel like the Wi-Fi routers, the Wi-Fi exposure is still a little bit woo-woo for people. I think people are having potentially still a little bit of a difficult time understanding that these things do and they can impact their health. So, does the Wi-Fi router placement actually matter to your well-being?
I believe so. So our take at Lightwork, so we measure three different types of EMFs. Actually, maybe let's back up for a second. Our primary goal with Lightwork, with everything that we do, is to be the most data-driven people out there with approach to all of the exposure areas that we test, and that includes EMFs. There's a lot of hand wavy stuff out there about EMFs. There are probably a lot of exaggerated claims in terms of the effect EMFs can have on your health. Are millions of people dying every year from EMFs? I don't think so. Do we think that there is enough evidence of both biological impact of these types of EMFs and specific health impacts to warrant the precautionary principle? Absolutely.
Mm.
So as it relates to Wi-Fi, which is a type of radio frequency radiation, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell signal, essentially anytime two devices are talking to each other. With all things EMFs, distance is often our first line of defense. Um, for a point source, which is different than a line source, but for a point source, which a Wi-Fi router is, your intensity of exposure follows what's called the inverse square law, which means that if you're 1 inch away from a source, moving 10 inches away from that source will decrease your exposure by 100x. So
Wow.
what that means is having a Wi-Fi router that is, 6 feet from your bed is dramatically worse than having a Wi-Fi router that is even 20 feet from your bed.
Mm.
And even further is better. I went and tested a home yesterday actually, where the Wi-Fi router was on the floor, like complete other side of the home of the master bedroom, and the level of radio frequency radiation on the master bed was nearly negligible. but their daughter's room was right above the living room where the Wi-Fi router was, and the level of Wi-Fi field intensity on their daughter's bed was significantly elevated above what we would say is an acceptable level. And so our baseline recommendation is to turn your Wi-Fi off at night. There are many people that don't want to do that for a number of reasons, alarms, baby monitors. We have solutions for all these things, but it kind of depends on how involved you want to get with it. The absolute simplest thing you can do is exactly just move your Wi-Fi router away from your bed and away from places that you spend a lot of time. I promise your Wi-Fi will still work. And it is, yeah, the simplest way to decrease your exposure.
Amazing. That is such helpful insight. And it is so nuanced that for some people, yeah, they have the baby monitors and they're living their life and they need their Wi-Fi for overnight. But there are solutions here. But I love hearing that the difference, it really does matter. Even the small distance, to be able to put it farther away from you does make a dramatic difference for your health.
Are
Yeah,
you
and
okay if I jump?
go ahead, Kayla. No,
No,
I
you
was
go. You go. I was gonna say that I always am harping on my sister about her phone being on her leg, or like, I feel like that's also something that people just to like bring this same concept into like your literal everyday life, like your phone being so close to your body versus even like if you're driving on the seat next to you. Is that also what you've seen to be true as well?
Yeah, our recommendations are, again, and all this stuff is an 80/20, right? Because it's not a good solution to be walking around perpetually analyzing, oh my God, is my phone in my pocket? Oh no, I'm screwing this
That's
all
what
up.
I do.
It's, I try to, I'm the like nerd that walks around with a fanny pack. Part of the reason is because I think it's incredibly useful and effective. Part of it is like, yeah, cool. It gets my phone a little bit further away from my body and I don't have to think about it. It's just a habit now.
Yeah.
One really easy thing that we think is pretty important is I'm not going to say never, but minimizing the number of the amount of time that you use Bluetooth headphones,
Mm.
because something like AirPods, those are two Bluetooth sources that are literally in your ears, and they're also communicating between the right and left AirPods, so they're sending signals across your brain. Um, you will absolutely see me when I'm running. I'm wearing AirPods. It's incredibly convenient. It's really nice to noise cancel. Like these technologies are really helpful. And I also don't have any noticeable sort of electromagnetic hypersensitivity, which there are people out there that can really feel more directly and more acutely things like radio frequency, elevated AC electrical fields, things like that. But you can see on this um, panel right now, I've got wired headphones, very easy. They work. And yeah, so we often are just recommending, little things. If you want to have your phone on your bedside table at night, which I wouldn't recommend for any number of reasons, primarily mental health reasons. But if you really want to do that for some reason, turn your phone on airplane mode. Turns out airplane mode really works if you actually turn the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth completely off. So yeah, there's just a lot of like try to do the 80/20 things to decrease your exposure, but definitely there's no point in like adding a huge amount of stress of, oh my God, am I doing it right? Oh my God, am I doing it right?
That's amazing. Kayla, awesome question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah,
And thank you for clarifying.
can I ask a question? Sorry, you guys.
Oh my
Please.
gosh, of course.
I tend to, I know I'm like participating. My question is, what about like Google Nest, like Wi-Fi points?
Oh, good question,
Pretty
Julie.
much same thing. Yeah, so it's any, often sometimes it'll be a slightly less powerful source, but we would see the same thing. So whatever the nearest Wi-Fi like mesh network or extender point is to your bedroom. I mean, I will just unplug the one that's closest to my
Mm, okay.
bedroom in a lot of it, Wi-Fi works pretty well at a long distance, and I suppose I would maybe challenge everyone out there to like try to actually get to a point where your Wi-Fi router is in your home and isn't working, and then solve that problem rather than having it so close to you.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Nice. It's
I also
amazing.
have one question on mold too.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I was
Of
thinking about it. I
course.
was like, I'll wait. And I was like, no, I should just ask. Is there anything to do that's like free in your own way? I actually was at the Massachusetts Conference for Women yesterday, And Martha Stewart was talking about how every time she gets out of the shower, she literally towel dries her walls, which I think she does not for like the potential mold. And I don't even know if that could even create mold. I think she does it more for her aesthetic. And it got me thinking, though, I wonder if there's any habits that I can do to help prevent mold that might be like easy to do and free. Obviously, I would love to invest in a Jasper or any of those air purification, but is there anything that you could think of that could, other than being aware if like there's any leaks, or does like your showers and like water residue on your shower walls like not creating mold?
I think that the shower residue on your walls is not likely to be a big driving source in and of itself, though if there's some sort of leak in your shower, that could be an issue. Um, I would, it's a trade-off here. I think probably the answer that I would give is it's not free, but air purifiers don't have to be that expensive. The primary model that we will recommend as like a baseline to people that is just a great workhorse. They've been around for forever. It's very effective. Is there's a Koei, I think it's some long number, like the AP 1512 or something. It's like $200 on Amazon. It works great for a bedroom size thing. Jasper is awesome. We love that company. They do great work. They are expensive. The reason they're expensive is because they're very quiet and they look really beautiful. In terms of the actual filtration, the Koei is going to be just fine. And so I would say, if you want to decrease your exposure to mold and also have a whole host of other benefits, there's a great piece out there that's part of like our like Lightwork library that we have, that someone did like an effective altruism or like an effective altruism calculation of should we just buy everyone in the world an air purifier? Like, would that be a good use of money in terms of like human adjusted quality of life years? And they made a pretty strong argument. And so I think that especially if you live in any kind of an urban area or any kind of a concerned about mold area, it feels like best practice to have one of those running. And there are ways to do it that aren't hugely expensive.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Amazing. I love this. We're getting to some really interesting topics tonight, that's for sure. The last thing I'll say about the Wi-Fi, just from a functional medicine perspective, Dom, you alluded to this too, is that not everyone is physically sensitive to EMFs. What I see it most is when people's toxin bucket is overloaded, that they become really sensitive to EMFs. And this is usually with infections like Lyme disease, with the co-infections, particularly Bartonella, people get really sick. Mold toxicity can do this. It's sort of when other things are affecting your nervous system already and maybe causing some inflammation in the brain that we're starting to become more sensitive to EMFs. And that can look like anxiety. Sometimes people will feel like heat if their phone is on their physical body, and can cause even like shaking and twitching. So if that is coming up for you, yeah, feel free to send me a message and we'll
Well, I
get.
think also the toxin bucket is a great way to look at it because, it's the specific mechanism of the effect of EMFs on biology, I think, is yet to be completely nailed down with the possible exception of magnetic fields, which I can talk about. But it is, I think, quite likely increasing the inflammation load, decreasing your quality of sleep, and just generally having, a bunch of not acute effects where you sleep one night in a place where there's Wi-Fi and then the next night the place where there's not and you're like, oh my God, I feel completely different. But it's these cumulative things that it's just best practice to decrease exposure.
Oh, so good. Such a good point. This correct question is for both of you, but Kayla, I know this is your thing. So, in your journey, when you were figuring out, really like standing at the bottom of the mountain, looking up, being like, oh my gosh, I want to evaluate the personal care products in my life. What did you find was like the easiest things for you to replace? Like, oh, that felt like a quick swap and that was pretty seamless. And what to you felt like the more challenging products for you to replace? Just to give people an idea of what might be a good place to start and maybe what's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect segue talking about like toxic overload and burden because it's not one product. Like your toothpaste is not going to be the thing that, sets you over the edge. It's your mattress that you're sleeping on for 8 hours. You wake up, what toilet paper are you using? Does it have bleach? It's overwhelming when you start to unpack it. But for me personally, I think this is such a personal answer because especially for women who are exposed to even more products in their day typically than men are. You have makeup, you have what's in your shower, you have your skincare, you have so many different things. Personally, I always found it was easy to, I liked to look at, I'm constantly auditing my routine, what I'm doing. Is it still serving me? Is this the best choice for me? And there's always more and more products that are also coming out, which is exciting. But I found that I was looking at what I was using every day for the most part. So everything from like hand wash, all of my skincare that's in my cabinet, and then also the things in my shower. And really, that's where I was constantly auditing on things that what do I am so in love with this product that I'm not willing to part from, or what are things that I'm willing to try something new. And for most of them, I was willing to try something new. So I personally knew deodorant was one that has typically not only so many chemicals, but also aluminum is in a lot of them for the antiperspirant part. And I think that though takes a lot more trial and error. So something like hand wash might be a really easy place to start because I don't think people are typically very emotionally attached to their hand wash. Maybe, maybe not. I think that's, and also inexpensive as well. But then also, looking at face wash and trying that out, knowing what's best for your skin, because some people have, drier skin versus more oily skin. So, there's so many recommendations I can make, but, my skin type and someone else's might not be the same. So a face wash that I love that's, low toxic, might not be the right fit for them either. So I think it's also important to keep that in mind. But I think just auditing what you use every day and the things that you're willing to try something new. And when you're done with that product, I definitely did not throw everything away. Like financially, that didn't make sense. Sustainability wise, that didn't make sense. But whenever I was out of a product, which a lot of personal care products, you use maybe, they're done in a month or two. So whenever I needed a new sunscreen, I looked for broad spectrum mineral based sunscreen that didn't have very many ingredients in them and whatnot. So yeah, I would say deodorant is worth trying to find. Just in my personal journey, it was worth trying out different things because I felt like that was one that was comparatively to the toxic commercial, regular deodorants that are out there, what people were typically using, that was worth the effort. But everything from hand wash, cleaning products, what's in your kitchen, and things that you use every day. And the less plastic, the better, for sure. So,
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And Dom, I know you have to hop off, so I just want to give you an opportunity if there's an answer that comes to mind before you go. And thank you again so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great to be here. I think, Kayla is, I think much more focused on this area than we are at Lightwork. That being said, the thing that we find to be maybe simplest entry point is just when in doubt, buy a fragrance-free version.
Mm.
That, without you don't have to go into all the ingredients, you don't have to swim down the rabbit hole. But it's pretty straightforward to just buy the one that's unscented, and fragrances have a really strong effect on our cognition and just general mood. And so that's generally the first thing that we recommend for people. And then last thing I'll say is we really love the site EWG certified as a filter for finding whatever you want. I'm sure there are great products out there that aren't EWG certified, but if you don't want to swim through every single ingredient list, we find that that's a pretty high signal filter.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dom.
Yep. Grateful to
I
be here.
appreciate
Yep.
it. Have a great night.
Be well.
Amazing. Yeah, Kayla, I love the point that you said about what are you less emotionally connected to? And maybe that's a good place to start because you're right. People have the products that they love and they have this emotional relationship with it. Like, oh my gosh, I could never give that up. Like I could never give, like if I have a really specific like hair texture, I don't want to give up like a shampoo that really works well for me. So starting with these items that feel maybe a little less emotionally charged, I think deodorant is the perfect place to start. That can feel a lot more accessible for people. So I think that approach is really, really nice.
oh, thank you. Yeah, and I love EWG as well. That
Yeah.
was definitely something that I still lean on every day when I am, looking at a category where I'm like, all right, I need toothpaste. I am willing to try something new. I'll go on the EWG app on my phone and look up toothpaste and then filter by the cleanest version. And then you can go on there and look up where you can shop the brands as well. So I've always used that app as well from when I started to really think about these things to today. And then also to Dom's point, which you can also talk about like how fragrance is so endocrine disrupting fragrance is also a trade secret where you can have thousands of chemicals within the word fragrance. So even though something might look clean but have fragrance, the word fragrance in the ingredient list, it could contain thousands of chemicals that are very endocrine disrupting. So something might look clean but have fragrance in it. And I personally don't love that and try to stay away from that as well. So that's just another thing that's, I feel like people, it's part education and understanding these things. And I think when you have the knowledge, you might choose differently, but then also Don was preaching, don't stress about it. Definitely don't stress about it. But then whenever you have the opportunity to make a new choice, do that. I also think that when I'm auditing, I'm constantly asking myself too, do I need this product in my lineup? Like I was in college, not non-toxic at all. I had all the Kylie lip kits. I was definitely consuming a lot of products because that was like the peak YouTube makeup, and I loved doing my makeup, and that was while I was in college, so that was very fun. And I'm constantly asking myself, do I need this primer and then this product and then this product? So in addition to really, tailoring down the ingredients that I'm exposed to, I'm also thinking about, do I even need this product in my life? And that will save you a lot of money. So I think that the practice of just auditing is really, really impactful.
Oh, such a good point. I love that. And for those of you who maybe are unsure about if you're being exposed to things or not, we do offer environmental pollutants testing. It looks at BPA, phthalates, parabens, and that's going to be the phthalates and parabens, especially in personal care products. The phthalates will be especially with fragrances. And it also looks at things like glyphosate, so understanding your pesticide exposures and different VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds that come from like furnitures. So if that's something you're wanting to understand, like what your overall load is like and maybe where you need to focus, that's something we can help you with too. But amazing, so good. So, Kayla, what would you say are, like, if anything comes to mind, and I can speak to this too, are two, like, home health universal truths? Like we were kind of saying earlier, everyone is really unique, everyone's health picture is different, but what are a few things that you feel like kind of apply across the board for people that aren't like, that are a little less nuanced, I guess?
I mean, I think that if I could make like one blanket statement, and definitely let me know your opinion because I lean so heavily on everything that you guys do and say, but
You're amazing.
plastic is one thing that I think it's definitely not new. We heard plastic straws save the turtles long times ago, but I really think that there's so much more plastic, even like in your to-go coffee cups that you don't realize. So I feel like a lot of people have made switches for like Tupperware in their homes, but then don't realize when they're out and about just getting a coffee, again, don't stress about it. But just the amount of plastic that we are exposed to every day is definitely concerning for me. And I'm constantly thinking about trying to minimize my plastic exposure recently. And I think that that's just something that is, you know, a universal truth that like no matter who you are, where you are, that I think plastic is one that really is top of mind for me right now.
Yeah, that's such a good answer. That wasn't the answer that came to mind. I'm so glad you said that because it is such a universal truth. There's so much plastic. And we're seeing now studies that even children are being born with microplastics in their blood that can travel through the placenta. So it's really profound how much we're being exposed to it. And with a lot of lack of clarity about what exactly the long-term implications of that are. So absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think my answer here, I think my answer is usually like cover air and water. Like I'm a big believer in air filters. I also just believe in opening windows and getting the indoor air in your home as much dirtier than the outdoor air, just with all the off-gassing from furniture and if there's mold in our homes. So opening your windows frequently is really important. And then I know it's an investment for people and it can be a little challenging, but a good water filter is so important. If anyone is like that to me is like the universal truth. I'm like, oh my gosh, like drink clean water. It is actually very important to your health. So, but Kayla, I'm so glad you said plastics. That's absolutely
I
brilliant.
learned from you about AquaTrue, so I got that and the trace minerals. And when I invested in it, I was like, I'm not going to go drink the water at work. So I actually also invested in a very large water bottle that I like practically ruck to work with this thing filled. And I'm like, well, if I want it to be a lighter load on the way back from work, I've got to drink it.
Yes.
So
Oh, I know it's wildly inconvenient, but it really is important to
it's
drink
so
clean
important.
water. Our bodies live off water. And if there's things in it, like old piping, especially in older cities like Boston, even San Francisco, that's not quite as old, but older. I mean, all cities are old at this point. That the piping is, there's a lot of contaminants in there. There's heavy metals, runoff from pharmaceuticals. So it is really important to be drinking water that's feeling really good in your body. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Oh my gosh, we literally just talked about this. This is a perfect segue. So I'll speak a little bit to this. And Kayla, I know like you invested. So let me actually ask you, since drinking the Aqua True water, water is one of those things that kind of what Dom was referring to earlier. It's not like you drink the tap water and you feel bad and you drink this water and you feel good. There's not this dramatic difference. But did you notice a taste in the quality of water with a filtered water like Aqua True versus like a tap water? Like the first time
Yeah.
you drank it, were you like, oh, there's something different here?
Definitely. And it's
Oh,
actually like a party trick, I feel like, where I'm like known as the girl with the reverse osmosis water filter.
yeah.
And when I add, and it's important also to note, and that I'm sure you will explain in better and more clarity, but the importance of adding trace minerals back in, because I didn't even know that when I thought, I'm just going to reverse osmosis my water, but I didn't realize stripping everything meant also the good too. But I'd rather add in those trace minerals, which is very inexpensive to do on I think I get them every 3 months, but adding 40 drops in every day to make sure I have the right minerals in my body to help support me. But yeah, it is definitely something that I make everyone who comes into my apartment try, and everyone I try it first and then I add the minerals in. And usually they're like, oh, it's a little salty. And that makes sense. Adding in the minerals and having it taste a little bit like salt. But the reverse osmosis water in general doesn't really taste like anything. And everyone says, wow, this tastes so good. And so, yeah, I can definitely attest. I have a lot of people come in just to have the reverse osmosis water. So
Oh, that's so good. Yes, it really does. I've heard it being described before as like crisp. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, my water isn't supposed to have this like aftertaste or kind of this weirdness. I feel like what comes to mind is when you drink like Dasani water and you're like, why does it taste like there's like a nickel in this water
yes,
bottle? Reverse osmosis tastes really just like clean and crisp. And you're exactly right, Kayla. So when you do use, typically we recommend reverse osmosis water filters because they tend to be the best at purifying your water and getting rid of things like we were just talking about, the pesticides and the heavy metals and any pharmaceutical runoff that's really common in our water system. And, but you're right, exactly right, Kayla. It filters out the minerals, the good things as well. So when we're getting water, that's like spring water. It's coming from the earth. The earth naturally has all of these amazing minerals that we really need for overall health. Minerals help our cells function better. They help our energy function better. They help our stress response more. So when we're missing minerals, it makes a really big difference to our physiology. But just as Kayla was saying, the reverse osmosis filter, you can buy mineral drops. They're very inexpensive just to add back into your water. So you filtered out all the bad and you're implementing more of the good. Some people will do more carbon-based filters like a Berkey. That is also really excellent. The upkeep is just a little bit more, and Berkeys tend to be, depending on your aesthetics, a little bit of an eyesore, like on the counter. So some people have been switching over to more of the reverse osmosis systems, either on the counter or under the sink for their whole house. That tends to work pretty well. So yeah, I think this is very important. And then the last thing I'll say, and this is kind of a next step. I wouldn't say this is the first step. Definitely focus on clean drinking water. And then if you are feeling so inclined, you can focus on your shower filter. So some people will do a whole house reverse osmosis system that will filter out their shower water. Other people will do, and they're relatively inexpensive. You can get a pretty good carbon filter for your shower for about $50, $60, and it will filter out your shower water filter. And why this becomes important is when water is hot, and most of us, unless you're in the cold plunge camp, and I got to tell you, that's not me, but most of us are taking hot showers. And as we know from the mold conversation, we have steam from the hot showers. And when we have steam, we're internalizing that vapor by inhaling. And sometimes chemicals like chlorine can be inhaled, and they tend to get a little bit stronger in the body when they are heated and they're inhaled by a respiratory system. So that's a little bit more of an advanced step. You can think about that. For example, like I don't have one in my place right now, and I probably will get one soon, but I just haven't really sweated it. So it's whatever next step is feeling best for you, but just know that's an option. Kayla, this is for you. So how do you shift through information on social media? Because there's so much noise now on social media about everything is toxic, everything's going to kill you. I feel like I just hear, like I open up Instagram, I don't have TikTok, but I imagine it's there too. There's just a lot of people who are very upset about the status of products. And how do you kind of sift through this information without getting really discouraged, or overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think that I've always been really good with my social media at having more of an emotional detachment from it, especially with the people. Like, I just have always really been cognizant of the people that I'm following, which algorithms put in people that you're not following as well. But I think that it all starts with putting out boundaries of screen time in general and how often you're going on the apps and whatnot. And then also making sure that you are comfortable with who you're following and you're not following someone just because you feel like you need to. I'm constantly, again, auditing on who I do follow, who I mute, who I unfollow, just because I know that when I'm on those apps, I don't really have as much control because you're mindlessly scrolling, you get sucked into something. So if I know that I'm comfortable with the people that I do consciously follow when I am unconsciously scrolling through and, catching up on my feed, that at least I feel confident on the things that are there. So I think always, again, auditing who you're following, how often you feel comfortable, being on the apps. There's so many apps that'll help like block you or, tell you you've spent too much time. So I think that that's definitely a personal preference. But then I also feel like I love podcasts. I do love consuming a lot of knowledge, and I do get a lot of that from, of course, social media. It's amazing how much free information there is on the internet at large. And I feel like I have just figured out who I really trust. And even though I might trust someone, whether that be something I hear on a podcast or see on a social media clip, I always take it with a grain of salt because, again, something might work for me, but not someone else. And in terms of when I decide to take something as truth or to at least try something, whether that be buying a product or implementing a new practice, I'm always listening and follow and watching. When I hear multiple people that I know, like, and trust talk about something, not necessarily random people. I also do like to challenge myself, though. I will say, it's important to also hear counter arguments to things that it might make you feel more confident in why you chose something, or also it might just make you think differently about either a product or a practice. But if I hear from multiple credible sources that I know, like, and trust, then I realize there might be something there. So I never act on something impulsively. I think that that's super important, just for your stress response. I always, collect the data almost, and then I think about before I purchase or practice something, how I'm going to implement that into my routine. If it's worth it for me, if that's something that I need to, keep saving for, or, is this something that it won't be an easy fit into my routine? Because that's also something I never purchase something unless I know exactly how it's going to fit in. And do I need that? Is that going to fill a gap for me? Is that going to help me? And then that's when I ultimately try something new. And I love trying new things. I also think that that's something I'm really passionate about. Is I'm always the first to try something in my friend group or my family. I love trying things and reporting back on it and how it worked for me. But not everything works for everyone. I think that that's super important. So I think those are just some things that I like to keep in mind, and I hope that that helps and resonates with others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And yeah, creating those boundaries on social media, being cautious about who you're following is super important. And I'll just say, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not sure where to start, and Kayla, like I've seen you do this too. It's, test. There are tests you can run to see, what is actually a problem for me so you're not guessing.
Yes.
I think that it's so important to take in the information, but then, yeah, like get an environmental pollutants test or get a mold test and see if this is something that is impacting you specifically so we don't get in like the area of fear that like everything is terrible. Sometimes it's just not. Like sometimes it's all right.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
just to build off of that, also my personal experience with Rev that has been so life changing. Like there's again, between supplements, between, I've always, asked Maddie, like, should I get an air purifier, a mattress, or a water filter? And, based on my circumstances, my financial situation, what gift cards I had, like, there's so many variables to consider. And Maddie helped me, like, think through those things. And doing all of my advanced blood work with Rev, I now don't buy any other supplements, and I'm super strict about the ones that, are recommended with my protocol. And it feels so good to know that I am actually supporting my own deficiencies. But again, that might not be someone else's. So, I mean, I cannot recommend enough working with Rev and specifically being able to do that blood work to actually get those results and then talking through. I live in a new apartment building, so I might not need an air purifier if I only have X amount of money. Where do I spend it? So that has been truly such a life-changing experience working with you guys, and you guys are always always in the app, asking random questions about anything. So yeah.
So good. I'm so glad. Yes, it's all that's what it's about. Personalization. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. That's perfect. And then we'll just touch on this briefly. How, as you've been making all these changes and you've done so much over the past few years to really create a home that feels really supportive to your physical health, how does it feel like when you drink your water and you've changed your products? Like, do you feel your body and your nervous system relax a little bit? Like, how does it feel for you emotionally to be doing these things?
Yeah, I think it's such a journey to create a home that feels like a sanctuary,
Mhm.
and also to create, I always think like the bedroom specifically, if I had to start anywhere, like I've always lived with roommates. So, and I'm very like-minded to them, and they're okay with, my bamboo, non-bleached paper towels and all the things that I, incorporate in my house. And I prefer. But I think that it's so important. Like our bodies are ultimately our home, and that's like what I always want to take care of most. And that's where no matter if you're in your physical, wherever you pay rent or whatever your mortgage, like that physical home, but also just thinking about, your internal home, your body, is so important. And then also then, the spaces around you, starting with like what kind of sheets do you have? What colors? Learned so much about color theory and feng shui from Julie, and that's been something I need to actually work on more. But there's so many aspects that are so personal to make only you are the one who can decide on like what feels best to you. Like I'm very much like I love blues and neutral colors and like ocean, but that might not feel cozy and settling to someone else. So there's so many aspects that you can do and that are so personal, but it is so important to just constantly be auditing and thinking about how you can enjoy the space that you're in your home at large, and also specifically the bedroom where you are sleeping, and you want that to be a very restorative, calming, nurturing space. So I always start with the bedroom, and then I've expanded it out as well. And then again, always talking to my roommates about things that I would love, and if they're not okay with it, then that's okay too. But yeah, it really that it's like the best if you're gonna put any effort into anything. I think it is so well spent.
Oh, so good. That's such a good reminder. Yeah, it really makes a big difference to create a home that feels good in your body. I'll share a quick story. When I moved out here, as someone who's dealt with mold illness in the past, I moved into this apartment and I didn't really think about it at first, but it's quite close to the water. And I all of a sudden started to get nervous. Like, oh my gosh, I wonder if this place has mold. And I kind of went back and forth with it. Like, do I get a mold test? Don't I? And I ultimately decided to move forward and get one. And thankfully, this place is great. There's no issues. But I could, as soon as I knew that information, my body, it relaxed so much more. I didn't realize how much I was holding on to that tension in my body. So we're very pro information, whether that's like getting a lab test or being really intentional with the colors or structuring your space in a way that feels really good in your body because your nervous system will respond accordingly. And your nervous system is going to be in charge of your immune system, a lot of your cellular health processes. So being able to create a safe space, like it's not just like a feel-good experience. It really makes a huge impact on your physiology. So thank you so much, Kayla, for sharing that because it's so important to create a space that feels really good. So this is sort of like my order of operations when I tell people, like, again, this world is overwhelming. Everything is toxic these days. Everything can kill you. I hope that between Kayla, myself, and Dom, we're able to tell you, like, yes, we care about these things, but also, like, you can live your life and everything's going to be okay. So these are the things that I personally recommend, and both Kayla and Dom echoed a lot of these throughout the talk, which is super cool. So start with your everyday exposures. Kayla, you already went over this, that the things that you use every day are super important. That's going to be the places where you want to begin. We talked a lot about certain chemicals like phthalates and BPA and parabens that tend to be in personal care products. Those chemicals are in and out of your body very quickly. They have a very, very short half-life. So being exposed to them occasionally is really no big deal. But if we're using them every day, the body never has a chance to fully clear them, and that's when it becomes a problem. So just being really mindful, yeah, the things you use every day, very important. I always say, like, start with the biological basics, air and water. Get a water filter. It's worth the investment. If you can't get an air filter, open your windows. That's just fine too. There's ways to do that that are free. Take off your shoes at the door. It is actually important, not just aesthetics and vibes, but because our shoes do track in quite a bit of dirt, pesticides. You wouldn't believe the amount of people who are testing like off the charts for pesticides right now. I've seen it like so many times this month. Any even like feces from animals, we want to take our shoes off. We don't want to have to worry about that. So leave them at the door. Be mindful of fragrance. Both Kayla and Dom reiterated this tonight. It's really important. Fragrance, it really affects your hormones. It affects your brain chemistry. Even things like essential oils can be a little bit problematic. So just make sure if you are using essential oils, they're organically sourced. But fragrance can be pretty tough. So if you are looking for alternatives to perfumes, Kayla's got you. I got you. We'll figure it out. But yes, that is a good one to avoid. Use weed killers cautiously, if at all. I can't tell you the number of people who we do the environmental pollutant panel that their glyphosate levels are off the charts. Glyphosate is the most abundant weed killer. It really affects your gut microbiome. It can really affect your brain chemistry. So just being really mindful, like if you have to spray the outside of your house, uh, please try to use an alternative-based company if at all possible. This has been like the root cause of several of our clients' health issues. So just keep in mind that is a real factor there. And again, like let's tap into how we feel. How do we feel to be in our homes? How can we create a safe space that feels really good in our bodies to be in, that we can truly relax? In the world of so much hyperstimulation, being able to create a space that yes, like the Wi-Fi router's away and like we're not lighting scented candles is important physically because it's going to affect you emotionally. So we want our home to be a place that we can truly recover and get back into our bodies so we can have a really cool opportunity for healing. So I think that that is all I have to share. Kayla, do you have any last thoughts?
No, I think that I always have had the mindset of seeing, certain challenges or, when I start to get overwhelmed, I just slow it down and always say like less is more. And, just to take the opportunity to say like, wow, instead of, thinking about I'm so overwhelmed by all these things that I need to change, thinking about like, wow, I am empowered. I have more knowledge. I'm so excited to slowly start to take control of my health. And I'm so glad I now am empowered with this information, and just not stressing about it, which is so much easier said than done, but stress is so detrimental to the body. So, yeah, truly one thing at a time. And I am just so grateful for the opportunity to be here today and just am a diehard fan of Rev Health. So
Amazing. We are a diehard fan of you. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective and all your knowledge that you've done. I mean, it's a full circle moment for me to even hear it because you just speak so eloquently about not only your journey, but your knowledge in this space is just unparalleled. So thank you so much for just being such an advocate for helping people make swaps that feel approachable and easy. Your voice is so needed. Thank you to Dom, who had to drop off, but his knowledge in this space is truly incredible. Lightworks Home Health, if you want to work with them, we do have a nice little affiliate with them. So if you are interested in having your home evaluated, please let us know. We can connect you guys and get that set up for you with a little bit of a discount. So very exciting. And yes, I know, seriously. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We hope that this conversation was supportive and maybe a little less stressful and more grounded approach to making your home feel really nice.
Thank you.
Oh, of course.
And
And
Kayla, thank you so, so, so much. And
oh, thank you,
it's
Kayla.
so good that you guys could put this together.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. So thank you both so much. And for supporting me through my health journey for many years and many years to come.
Always. So good. And if anyone has any questions, of course, we're happy to take questions.
Yeah.
Um,
I do. There was the one question, I got the question from one of our other members who couldn't make it. Oh, and I was supposed to call her today, but that's okay. She's a friend too. Okay, so water filter, she's going to email you more about that, but she also
Great.
wanted, and I know the answer to this, glyphosate and fibroids.
Yes, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So when we think about fibroids are so, and Julie, like you have personal experience,
Oh, yes, I
oh
do.
yes. So fibroids can kind of act like they're almost your body's way of walling off toxicity from the rest of systemic circulation. So when we think about Chinese medicine uses this analogy all the time, this concept of dampness. It's like you are cooking gravy on the stove and you just kind of you forget about it and you walk away and you come back an hour later and it's completely congealed. That's what I think of when I think about fibroids. And it's your body's way of sort of walling off this toxicity into this own congealed form, which in some ways is very, very helpful because it's not affecting the rest of your body, but then you're left with this fibroid. So glyphosate can be a huge contributor to that. There are so many studies coming out now that living in close proximity within a mile of a golf course can contribute to things like fibroid formation, like Alzheimer's disease. So it's affecting us more than we think, and it is a long-term game. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. This is something that happens in decades. For Alzheimer's disease, the prodromal period of illness, which is how long it takes to lead up to a disease before you experience symptoms, is 30 years. So it's things that take quite a bit of time. But yeah, the fibroid and pesticide connection is really real.
The only other thing, so thank you for saying it because I knew, and we can send that to her, but the
Totally.
temporal displacement that we've talked about before, which is people tend to minimize the things that will kill them or make their lives miserable in a decade or 30 years from now. But it is all adding up every single day. And so the
Mhm.
more that we can decrease our exposure. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Oh, so good. I'm so glad. Yes, so good. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation. Thank you again, Kayla. You're the best.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, again, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to help. Yeah. Oh, right now I should mention we are doing for the rest of this month a free mold test if you purchase our Prolog protocol. It's a free add-on. So if you are interested in that, please contact us. We'd love to speak with you. You can book a discovery call on our website. And yeah, we'd love to help you. So thanks so much, everyone.
Yay.
Oh, have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.